Folks, welcome to the program. Grant Stinchfield here. This is Stinchfield, the podcast. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. The pardon has come through. I knew the pardon was going to come through. Yes, Joe Biden was going to pardon Hunter Biden. Is anybody surprised by this? Is anybody surprised that Joe Biden lied about it? And we'll go through the lies over and over again. Hanging Karine Jean-Pierre out to dry, by the way. How many times did she say, no, Joe Biden wasn't going to pardon Hunter? And then, of course, he did. I'm not surprised by this. In fact, in many respects, I'm not even angry over the pardon. What I'm angry about are the crimes the Biden crime family committed that will go unprosecuted, the crimes that Joe Biden is really responsible for. Let's face it, he's the big fish. Hunter Biden, he's a drug-addicted sex fiend who was basically abused and exploited by his own father. So, am I surprised by all of this? No. Who's next as far as the pardons go, though? Who will be next in line for a pardon? How about this? Joe Biden will pardon himself. This is my prediction. A lot of people are saying no way. Why wouldn't he? His legacy, if there's anything left of one, is ruined now. So why wouldn't you just pardon yourself? Take any chance of Republicans going after you off the table. Jim Biden will be pardoned by his brother. Jill Biden. I believe if you look at the Biden crime family as a literally mafioso style family, Jill is the consigliere. There is no doubt in my mind that everything Joe Biden did went straight through Jill Biden as well, that she was ultimately, in many cases, the puppet master of all of this. So he will pardon all of these people. Mark my words. I truly believe this is going to happen. Hunter is just the first of many dominoes to fall in this pardon scheme. We're going to go through all of it, why I believe it's happened. We're going to go to reaction from the mainstream media, even Democrats. Surprisingly, most Democrats are ticked off about this pardon. And can you blame them? It basically proves President Trump and all of us and what we've been saying, that the Biden crime family, the Democrats, they put themselves above the country. This was always the knock against Joe Biden. Putting family above the country, putting profit above his role as commander-in-chief. And again, no surprise here. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we do, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at Colonial Metals Group. freegoldguide.com/Grant. Now is the time, folks. You got to start thinking about protecting your portfolio. A great way to do it is with gold. The government spending's out of control. It's not going to come down to the levels where we're not going to see inflation. The rate of inflation may come down under President Trump. I believe that to be true. But we're not going to see government spending come way off, which makes gold, again, a very attractive commodity to put your money in when you're thinking about protecting your nest egg. Gold went up during the last 4 years of President Trump. Gold certainly went up during Joe Biden. In fact, gold has continued to rise since the beginning of time. It has stood the test of time. Colonial Metals Group can help you. You want to take an existing 401k or an IRA? Colonial Metals can help you. freegoldguide.com/Grant. Ask them about some of their offers. There's free silver involved with this as well, up to $7,500 worth. freegoldguide.com/Grant. 800-458-7356. That's 800-458-7356. freegoldguide.com/Grant. We're appreciative of their sponsorship of this program. All right. With that, folks, let's get this party started. Joe Biden has given an unconditional pardon to Hunter Biden. Now, unconditional is what I expected to happen. Everybody's reading Joe Biden's statement about the politicization of the DOJ, and they only went after Hunter for political reasons, which is so hypocritical because this is exactly why they went after President Trump. Everybody's talking about that. I don't need to talk about that. But I want to know, have you actually read the pardon? Because the pardon is what says it all. The pardon is an admission of guilt by Joe Biden. The pardon is an admission that the Biden crime family is very real. Why? Because it goes back 11 years. Here it is, folks. I'll read it to you. Full and unconditional pardon of Robert Hunter Biden, okay, for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st of 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted, including any that have resulted in convictions by special counsel David Weiss on docket, bang, 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 boom. So all of this is an unconditional pardon from January of 2024 to January of 2014 to December of 2024. Basically 11 years. 2014. Why 2014? 2014 is when it all started. 2014 is when it all happened in Ukraine. And Ukraine is at the heart of all of this. Not only does Hunter Biden get his job with Burisma, but Joe Biden gets dispatched off to Ukraine to fire the prosecutor, where he makes that admission. Who can forget the admission that Joe Biden made? And he did make an admission, folks, about firing that prosecutor. Here it is. I'll play it for you. This goes back to 2014. This is what he's talking about. So again, I got fired from Newsmax for calling into question what was happening in Ukraine because I knew it was filled with corruption. I knew the Biden administration was knee-deep in the corruption in Ukraine, and I didn't want to see American taxpayer dollars flying over there, and I got fired for this. In many respects, I feel vindicated. I feel vindicated by the pardon because it proves to me that the corruption was very, very real. Why else would Joe Biden go back to 2014? You have dozens upon dozens of LLCs, dozens upon dozens of bank accounts. The money flows through. You've got the suspicious activity reports, millions of dollars flowing into the Biden family, and they have no experience in anything, not energy, not Chinese policy, nothing. And yet they make a fortune. So yes, this is about a cover-up, and the cover-up doesn't work unless you also pardon Jim Biden, you also pardon Jill Biden, and you also pardon Joe Biden, the big man himself. Who can forget this?
They made, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, they made some genuine, substantial changes institutionally and with people. But in one of the three institutions, there's now some backsliding.
The courts
there, yes.
So, lo and behold, son of a bitch, the prosecutor gets fired. It's an admission. I had said a long time ago I was going to keep playing that soundbite over and over again because he's literally caught on tape abusing his position of power. At that time, nobody knew Hunter was working for Burisma. So, of course, you got that prosecutor fired. He was going after Hunter Biden's company that's paying him $1 million. All of this is interesting. I go into the Rumble chat. This is Bulky writes, Joe, I won't pardon Hunter. Hunter, Dad, I'll go public and or write a book. Joe, Hunter is pardoned. Would you put it past Hunter Biden to run a move on his father? No, of course not. These are thieves, man. These are crooks beyond belief. They're operating at a level of international intrigue like you'd never believe. So I don't put this by it, but I will say this. Joe Biden he's not a super smart guy. He's wrong on foreign policy every time, but he's not dumb. He's just not super smart. And he knows when he's thinking about these crimes, Joe knows that in order to truly protect himself, if Republicans are going to get vindictive, if Republicans are finally going to do what I've been begging them to do, and that is really go after Joe Biden, he knows he's got to pardon himself. If he doesn't, well, then he opens up everything and everybody. Now, Mike Davis, who is a great attorney, you see him on my buddy Steve Bannon's show on Real America's Voice. Mike Davis had tweeted out that it's interesting because Congress can now call Hunter Biden to testify, and Hunter Biden can't take the Fifth Amendment because he can't incriminate himself on anything because he's been pardoned for any and all crimes. So Congress needs to call Hunter Biden in and say, we're only going to talk to you about events between January of 2014 and December of 2024. We're not going to talk to you about any events in between there. Now, how do you take the Fifth on the grounds you may incriminate yourself? It doesn't matter. You've been pardoned on all crimes. I guess you could make the argument you're still going to take the Fifth, but it's going to be very difficult. And then if he doesn't talk, maybe you charge him with contempt of Congress, like they did Steve Bannon. That makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to all of you. It certainly makes sense to me. The problem is Jim Biden. This is the problem for Joe. Jim Biden, Joe himself, and Jill, they know where the bodies are buried. So unless you pardon them, you got a big problem, man. You got a big problem. And if you pardon them, then you say, all right, what good is it? If you're a Republican, we got a lot to work on going into the next 4 years of President Trump. Really specifically the next 2 years, because we're guaranteed the House and Senate now for the next 2 years. You've got to be under the assumption that we lose one chamber of Congress next time around. I don't want to. I think we can take them both. But you've got to operate under the assumption we're only going to get 2 years of this, just like under the first term of President Trump. You got to get a lot done. Do you want to spend the time going after Joe and Hunter and Jim and the Biden crime family if in the end everybody's been pardoned and you're not going to get anything out of it? I mean, I guess to expose to the American people the truth, but in many respects, I already know the truth. I know what the reality is. Look at the Oversight Committee's paper that lists hundreds of suspicious activities, hundreds of what I believe are crimes on behalf of the Biden crime syndicate. So we already know the truth. We got to get things done to get America great. Now, if they're not pardoned, well, then that's a different deal, because then we could get retribution. Then we could get some accountability in all of this. But if he pardons everybody, there's no accountability. And that's not good. Now, as for the lies, and Joe Biden did lie about all of this. I'm going to play for you some of those lies. But before I do, I want to tell you about my friends over at get21now.com. How would you like to get 21% annualized interest on your investment? 21% locked in, paid monthly. All right? That's what the folks at get21now.com can do for you. 21% annualized on your investment. This is great. I'm getting my money direct deposited in my account every month. They've lived up to their promises to me. I know these guys. I've gotten to meet with them on several occasions. I believe in what they're doing. And what they're doing is mining Bitcoin. So you don't have to deal with the wild swings of the ups and downs of the market. You lock into this 21% up to, depending on the deal you make with them. And there's a series of deals. I urge you to talk to them about it. But I locked in at the 21% level. I'm not dealing with the Bitcoin swings, yet I'm profiting off the Bitcoin craze. They mine the Bitcoin at an industrial level. They've got giant warehouses. They buy the electricity cheap. They mine the Bitcoin. They sell it the next day on the open market. This is how they pay you the 21%, and it's working for me. I urge you to give them a call, talk to them about it, see if it's right for you. Get21now.com. The name of the company is NFN8, but Get21now.com, man, it's the place to be. 21% annualized, locked in, paid monthly. You can't beat that. All right. I told you I'll play you some of the lies. They're lies by Joe Biden here.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Well, You did. So that's a lie. Now, a lot of my conservative friends are so upset about the lie. He said he wouldn't pardon him, but he did. Who freaking cares? You upset about Joe Biden lying? We've had 4 years of his lying. I didn't talk to my son and his business dealings. I didn't know anything about my son's business dealings. The lie after lie after lie, it goes on and on and on. Going all the way back to the days when he said he finished, first or second in his class when he graduated. No, he didn't. The lies are, all he does is lie. I'm not mad about the lie. People are mad about the pardon. Oh, he made an end run. Look, here's my deal. I know Stinchfield doesn't sound like an Italian name because it's not, but my mother is fully Italian. My grandfather, great-grandfather came from Italy, construction business in New York. I learned family first. Yes, country is first. You're elected to commander-in-chief, but you still have your family. I still would say, you know what? Family first. Especially if you're a mafia crime boss, which is what I believe Joe Biden is. He's a crime boss. Of course he's going to pardon his son. And if he didn't pardon his son, what does this say about Joe Biden, who literally exploited a drug-addicted sex fiend with no skills whatsoever, and he dispatched Hunter Biden to go meet with the most evil, vile, strong, devious, sly men on the face of the planet for profit. He fed his son to the wolves. His son marches over there high on crack cocaine, makes deals with Xi Jinping and all leaders of Ukraine and Russia and the Moscow mayor's wife. It all comes back, and Joe Biden says, good job, son, gives him pats on the back. Hunter Biden was the bag man. If you're a mafia boss and you have the ability to pardon your son, of course you're going to pardon your son. Not mad about that. In fact, I would say, you know what? Any father would do this, especially if you're the father responsible for it all. Why are we surprised by this? I'm not. If I acted like a criminal, which I'm not going to, but if I did, and I sent my son to go deal with these vipers overseas, and then my son gets prosecuted, I was president, I'd pardon him. I'm not going to lie about that. I'd pardon him. Here's what I'm mad about. I'm mad about the crimes committed by the Biden crime family that will go with no accountability, no enforcement, no prosecutions, crimes against the American people. And I'm not talking about the penny ante gun charge on Hunter. Who cares? Do you know any one of us, except me probably because I worked for the NRA, or probably all of you, lied on a gun form about being addicted to drugs? You never would have been prosecuted like that. I'd be honest with you. Wouldn't have. But it was Hunter's son, and they were going after Trump, and they had to say, look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And it was a setup job because Joe knew all along he was going to pardon him. So he used his son again to make it look like everything's fair and dandy. The income tax charge. Hunter Biden was paying it back. He wouldn't have gone to jail for that. He was going to pay it back. I don't think they send people to jail for that. So these penny ante crimes I don't care about. I care about the abusing your position of power. I care about exploiting the office of the presidency and the vice presidency to line your pockets. I care about the phony shell companies, the money laundering schemes, all at the expense of the American taxpayer. That's what I care about. So what I'm steaming mad at here is not the pardon. It's the fact that, again, they're going to escape scot-free. No doubt in my mind. So the lies like this, come on, they're to be expected.
As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
So he rules out a pardon. Well, apparently he didn't. And he hung his press secretary out to dry. I mean, I actually believe Karine Jean-Pierre, the worst press secretary in American history, for the worst president in American history, actually thought that Joe Biden wouldn't pardon Hunter. I believe she was probably told he wasn't going to. Joe knew all along he would, because Joe is a pathological liar.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. Let me go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Yes, he will. And he just did. Going all the way back to 2014 to review this, it all goes back to Ukraine. Everything started there. This is why Joe Biden is covering for himself. This is not, in many respects, this is not even about Hunter in Joe Biden's mind. This is about Joe Biden covering his own ass. And is it wrong? In many respects, I think it is, because of the crimes Joe Biden committed. Joe Biden is not out of bounds of his constitutional authority, though he's well within the bounds of his constitutional authority. Does it make it right? I know a lot of people are angry about this. It doesn't make it right, but he is within the bounds of the law to pardon Hunter, himself, Jill, and Joe, which I think are the next to come. This is Joe Walsh, Democrat congressman. He's always very critical of President Trump. I never thought I would play a soundbite of Joe Walsh on MSNBC that I agree with. But many Democrats are coming out and agreeing with conservatives on this. Listen.
See, I told you so. They're all like that. So the next time any of us complain about anything Trump does, this pardon is just deflating. For those of us who have been out there for a few years now yelling about what a unique threat Donald Trump is, for Joe Biden to do something like this, Trump, nobody's above the law, we've been screaming. Well, Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law. Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth, we've been screaming. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about this. The politicization of the justice system, Donald Trump and his people have been screaming. Well, that's exactly what Biden said here.
Joe, is this a politics of purity? I mean, we had Donald Trump pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio during his term, and there wasn't a lot of hue and cry about that. And this is a father who saw his first wife killed, his daughter killed in a car crash, his two young sons survive. One goes on to have real difficulties with addiction. Another dies because of cancer. This is a family that's really troubled. I mean, yes, he said he wasn't going to do this, but did anyone ever believe that that was the case? I mean,
so yes, and I'm going to play for you proof that the mainstream media believe that's the case. They praised Joe Biden beyond belief about not going to pardon Hunter Biden, saying that this was the ultimate show of respect for the rule of law. And now she's saying because he had a wife that died and a son that died and a son that suffers from addiction issues, that it's okay to pardon him. This is the excuse they're making? Come on. They would never give President Trump that credit.
I would have put good money on this happening. Like, are many people going to be surprised that a father who is also the president would do this for his son?
I don't know that people will be surprised, because you're right. Joe Biden repeatedly said he wouldn't do this. So he repeatedly lied. But this just furthers the cynicism that people have about politics. And that cynicism strengthens Trump, because Trump can just say, I'm not a unique threat. Everybody does this. Mm-hmm. If I do something for my kid, my son-in-law, whatever, look, Joe Biden does the same thing. I get it, but this was a selfish move by Biden, which politically only strengthens Trump.
You know how Joe Biden could have gotten away with this in a way that wouldn't have outraged the Democrats? Because Joe Walsh is 100% spot on. This strengthens President Trump's argument that, one, the corruption was very, very real. Otherwise, the pardon would have gone back to 2014. That's an admission that the corruption was real. It proves President Trump's point and all of our point that they weaponize the justice system. They use government for their own political benefit, which is what Joe Biden just did here. He said, let's dispatch my son to go commit crimes and line our family's pockets. And then at the end of my term, I'll just pardon you and we'll get away with it scot-free. This is our get out of jail free card. So it proves every point President Trump made on this. Now, there's a way that Joe Biden could have eased the pain for Democrats on this, because I don't blame Democrats for being steaming mad. Joe Biden should have pardoned President Trump with Hunter. Joe Biden should have done a complete and absolute pardon of President Trump going back, 11 years also. Go back to the same date of 2014 and absolve President Trump of any crimes that he may have committed, as the phrasing is in Hunter Biden's pardon. Boy, what would they have done then? What would we have done then if he had done that? Well, it would have put Joe Biden at least in somewhat of a better light, but they're so dumb they don't even think about that. Democrats used to kill us, Republicans that is, on messaging. They don't anymore. This last 4 years, their messaging has been so bad. Kamala Harris's messaging has been so bad. They've moved so far to the left. They turned most of the American people away from them. Their messaging has been spot off, not spot on. So Joe Walsh is right. This hurts them. And I don't mind telling you, this hurts them in a very, very big way. This is that former federal prosecutor, I think it's Andrew Weissman, talking about the pardon.
What is before us is a president who is living the rule of law. He is living it in in the most personal way.
All right, so this is, and I want to make sure we get this right. This is him talking about Joe Biden saying, I will not pardon Hunter Biden. So this is a flashback. And I'm going to play for you a lot of the people just going crazy about, oh, thank you, Joe, for saying you're not going to pardon Hunter. When in reality, he did.
He is not pardoning his son, which he could do. These are federal charges. Right. He is not doing that. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And it is, if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son. I'm not saying that he should get credit for it because it is the right thing to do.
That's the norm, but Trump is beneath it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that the idea that you can't see it, or is that really what's going on? Or when you can see.
You ever notice all these liberals are such betas, such wimps? He's living and breathing the rule of law. No, he's not. He's lying to your face, and we knew it back then. I had always said, if you've been watching this podcast for a while, I know we got a lot of new viewers, and thank you for that. We've been saying for a long time, the pardon was coming. The pardon of himself is going to come. Jim and Jill, it's all coming because they're devious, despicable human beings. They really are. I'm not even kidding around. They're despicable human beings. Folks, have you heard of Energized Health? Energized Health is responsible for turning my life around. Now, I was always in decent shape, but not like the shape I was in once I found Energized Health. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant is a system of inner cellular hydration. Getting hydrated is not the same as cellular hydration. I want you to learn about it. Go to EnergizedHealth.com. I lost 15 pounds in just a couple weeks, and I was already in good shape, but I tightened up. Over Thanksgiving, I was at the beach. I'm 55 years old. I look better than most 35-year-olds. I say that in a cocky manner, but I work hard at it, and Energized Health helped tighten me up in a way that I never thought was possible at my age. And it wasn't hard. I didn't really change my workouts, and I don't go crazy at the workouts. I changed my diet around a little bit, but I still was eating a lot of the same foods that I like. One part of the secrets is I cut out some sugar, and I started drinking water. But how I did that is the secret to the success in this. It's backed by science. They have the key here, and it's a fabulous program. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant if you want to take back your life, whether you want to lose 200 pounds, you want to lose 20 pounds, maybe you just want to tighten up and lose 10 or 15 pounds. EnergizeHealth.com. It's not just about the weight. I gained muscle mass. I lost visceral fat, that inner fat that's so bad around my organs, and my mental clarity, my skin cleared up, all of it. EnergizeHealth.com/Grant. They can help you find out about intercellular hydration and how it works. I love these guys. I really do. They changed my life, and I'm grateful for them. EnergizeHealth.com/Grant. All right, so Jonathan Turley, the great legal mind over at Fox News, responded to the pardoning of Hunter Biden. He responded like this.
Law attorney. Jonathan, great to have you on the show tonight. Let's talk about the bad precedent that this could be set and abused by later presidents and possibly, sadly, tarnish the reputation of President Biden. I mean, when you become president, your role as president is to put the nation first. And here we have a president who is putting his family first after promising America that he would not do so.
Well, that's right. And this brings to mind the same type of familial action taken by Bill Clinton, who pardoned his brother in his final days of office. And it also shows a degree of contempt for the American people. This is a president who didn't just simply lie about not ever speaking to his son's business associates, of never being in meetings with them. But he lied repeatedly to the American people when he was a candidate for re-election. And he was asked repeatedly, as he was, about meeting his son's clients, and denied that he would do that. And he has now violated that pledge.
Right. Jonathan, you're absolutely right. I know you pointed out earlier about the sweeping sweetheart deal.
So the sweetheart deal was what it all started. They create this sweetheart deal, and they get exposed to the sweetheart deal, and the sweetheart deal gets thrown away. But all the while, it didn't matter. Because I was telling you, everybody was telling you, anybody with brains was telling you that Joe Biden was going to end up pardoning his son. Now, the lies go way back, right? I mean, when you think about that debate between President Trump and Joe Biden, one of the early debates, not this time around, but earlier, all right? When he lost the first time. Well, we know he didn't lose, but you know what I mean. This is an interaction which shows you the levels at which Joe Biden will lie. And again, President Trump nails it.
True, then he's a corrupt politician. Right. So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody. Hey, President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please.
Because look, there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where you're
exactly
going?
What?
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
President Trump was spot on. And again, back then, Joe Biden knew full well that laptop was very real because all the emails found in it, all the pictures were real. No one's going to be able to doctor those pictures like that. I don't care about AI or whatever. To have the sheer number of images in one spot, no way is that fake. And I knew it wasn't fake then. And then all the emails, and Joe's got to be looking at these emails, and he knows they're true. So he knows it's not Russian disinformation. His CIA friends come out and basically find a way to protect him by claiming that it was Russian disinformation. And it worked the first time around. But as his presidency, Joe Biden's that is, went on, we saw the levels of the corruption. I'm angry with a Republican-controlled Congress that didn't get anywhere with Joe Biden, except for the fact that they did expose a lot of the crimes. They exposed them. They just didn't hold them accountable. So James Comer over at Oversight and Jim Jordan over at Judiciary, they did a good job of uncovering all of the evil doings and crime family money schemes. We just never got accountability for it all. President Trump at a recent rally.
I want to see Hunter ask these questions. Hunter, you know nothing about energy. You know nothing about China. You know nothing about anything, frankly. Hunter, you're a loser. Why did you get $1.5 billion, Hunter? And your father was never considered smart. He was never considered a good senator. He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass.
It's true. That was all of Joe Biden's successes because he kissed Barack Obama's ass. There's no doubt about it. I'll tell you, they didn't even know how to run a criminal enterprise. When you look at what they tried to do to hide the money laundering, it wasn't even done in a manner that they would be able to conceal. They had shell companies that were run by themselves. They needed to put other people, not that I'm going to tell you how to money launder, but they needed these shell companies to be run through legitimate companies. They needed to funnel money through a legitimate company, let the legitimate company take a piece of it, and then kick it back in salary or whatever back to the other. You needed to hide it in a manner that wasn't just flowing from bank account to bank account to bank account. Having a bank account controlled by Hunter, going to a bank account controlled by Jill, going to a bank account controlled by Hunter's sister, that's not money laundering. That's just moving money around the family. And if you think it's money laundering, you're an idiot, which is why you basically got busted. Where you weren't an idiot was that you realized the deep state was so strong they were never going to go after you, and you knew that you could basically do whatever you want. And once Joe Biden was installed as president, he knew he had pardon power. This pardon was coming from the very beginning. This is not some late decision. You know, some people are saying, oh, Hunter and them, they were at the Thanksgiving table, and they were this was a wink and a nod deal. They knew this was coming a very, very, very long time ago. So Scott Jennings over at CNN, do you know he's been at CNN since like 2017? I had no idea of this. He's been at CNN for 2017. I think they had muzzled him because I'd never seen the guy until the last year, I guess. He's a tremendous voice at CNN. But he's only a tremendous voice because he says everything that we say. I mean, he's a bright guy. I'm not trying to take away from Scott Jennings over at CNN. I'm going to play the soundbite for you where he obliterates Joe Biden and the pardoning of Hunter. But Scott Jennings doesn't say anything that all of you couldn't say. It doesn't take a guy like me who gets paid to do it. You guys know this stuff. The reason he gets the publicity is because he's going up against liberals. Some of my best friends, you know, people like Sebastian Gorka, Charlie Kirk, they'll tell you their most viral moments are always when they go up against liberals. Scott Jennings gets to do it every day. Now, kudos to CNN, and I don't often give them kudos. They've unmuzzled Scott Jennings. This is not a Michael Steele type character, a phony Republican like they have over at MSNBC. They allow him to speak, and they haven't fired him for doing it, and they know it's getting them some publicity. So here it is.
Joe Biden is leaving office making the strongest possible case for Donald Trump that anybody could possibly make it, and that's that our government and our justice system is of, by, and for the elites and nobody else. He ran to banish Trumpism from our political system in this country, and he has left it politically and now institutionally the strongest possible political force in this country. It is a complete and utter failure by the head of the Democratic Party and the President of the United States. Never again do I want to hear, oh, Donald Trump's a liar. You can't believe anything he says. Donald Trump will abuse his power. Donald Trump will only use the system to benefit himself and his family and so on and so forth. Never again. I have one question for Karen, and that is, why did he need an 11-year blanket pardon going back to 2014 when Joe Biden was the vice president? We are sitting on the biggest cover-up of who knows what crimes, and Joe Biden amazingly knows exactly, roughly, when it started. He knows just about when it all started. He's leaving office in complete and total disgrace. He is a liar, and there is no other way to spin this today. This has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with the character of Joe Biden.
So the most important part of that soundbite that you need to hear is the arrogance of those on the left. Now, you have some on the left that are speaking out against this. That woman laughed. She laughed when Scott Jennings brought up the fact that I just had played out to you, that this is about a cover-up. This is about an insulation deal of insulating the Biden crime family from further prosecution. She laughed at that when they said it goes back to 2014. Why? Because that's when it all started in Ukraine. She laughs. Ratchet, you're spot on. All Karen can do is laugh. It's a great name for her, too, by the way. I'm looking at some of the comments on here, and I'm always interested by some of them. Abe Fan 1969 says, captive audiences with your commercials like your podcast. Abe, I'm curious. Please write in the comment box. Are you upset that I have 1 minute live read commercials in the podcast? Because it's the only way I know how to make a living, right? So I can do this full time. So we spread the word far and wide. Are you upset that I make a living from this? How else am I supposed to do it? For free? Because what Facebook has done, and I will go to my Facebook live feed right now where I used to have hundreds watching. I have 8 people watching on Facebook. 8. I've got tens of thousands of followers on Facebook. I have 8 people watching. I used to make $5,000 a month on Facebook off of just the video views. I now make like $12. Abe, what you're asking is that I don't make any money off of this, and basically then of course my voice is silenced because I've got to either go back into running businesses like I did before, or I got to go back and get a job someplace. So I hope you're not upset about the commercials, and I really am grateful to my audience for supporting them, and of course the sponsors of this program that I'm grateful for because it allows me to do this on a full-time basis. It's interesting though, like, conservatives want to believe in capitalism, but then when you engage in capitalism, they get mad. This is not PBS. It's not commercial free. It's not the Masters where I have one sponsor that'll pay for the whole program to be aired without commercials. That would be an interesting model, though. I wonder if someone would do that. I don't know. Anyway, that's President Trump. And then, of course, Scott Jennings laying it out. Now, what about the mainstream media? PLP, thank you very much for the carry on. How about the mainstream media? The mainstream media, you want to go back and see how happy they were that Joe Biden wouldn't commute his son's sentences or pardon his son. They were just giddy with what a great man Joe Biden is. Just watch this. This is, I'm not going to play all 9 minutes of it, but there's 9 minutes of this, of Democrats going crazy about how great Joe Biden is. And it was all a big bloviating lie.
Presidential promise to put the law before family.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his values when it was really personal, and he did that today.
It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward answer, but it takes new weight when we see what Trump is saying about the outcome of his trial, what we're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process, and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
Do you see the irony in all of this? I mean, look, irony, hypocrisy, every day it hits us straight in the face with these Democrats. Hypocrisy. How many times have I said I could turn this show and call it Democrat hypocrisy with Grant Stinchfield? Like literally every day we could play out Democrat hypocrisy. Do you see these people literally giddy over the fact that Joe Biden said he wouldn't pardon his son, when in fact he always had plans to? You heard one gentleman in there says, let's face it, he's going to pardon him. And then, he said he wouldn't do it. We believe Joe Biden. You guys are idiots. Here's one thing I can tell you. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm going to go out on a limb here because I'm trying to think of a time that President Trump, in my opinion, has lied to us about something. I can't think of one. Everything President Trump has told me, has told us, has turned out to be true. When he was called a conspiracy theorist, when he had basically said, remember, COVID came from China, the China virus, China. Going to call it that. Everything turned out to be true. I can't think of a time President Trump lied. I can't even think of a time he told a tall tale. Now, maybe this is my bias protecting the guy that I literally have such great respect for and would go to the mat for, go to the end of the earth for, because he's taken such arrows for us. But I don't know. I mean, literally, if you know of a time when he did, let me know. Let me know. I could play more of this. This is classic.
Current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. Again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides, versus
right.
Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty, and Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son, he would not commute his sentence.
Again, the pardon is an admission of guilt. It goes back to 2014. It goes back to Ukraine. That's all I have to say about it. Really, the whole podcast could only take 2 seconds. This pardon is an admission of guilt on Joe Biden's behalf, and you wait till the day before he leaves office and he pardons himself, he pardons James Biden, and he pardons Jill Biden. It's going to happen. You mark my words. And if it doesn't, it shows you how dumb Joe Biden is, because he's going to leave himself open into a whole shit ton of hurt if somebody wanted to go after him. She was talking about the weaponization of the DOJ. The FBI is specifically part of that. So what happens with the FBI now? Kash Patel, great friend of this podcast, of my Real America's Voice show, a great friend of mine, is now set and poised to take over the FBI as the next director of the FBI. He has literally said numerous times he wants to move the Hoover building to the middle of the country someplace, detach it from Washington. Will he be able to carry that out? Will he get confirmed? I think he will get confirmed, but I think Senate Republicans have to run some protection for Kash Patel, and they better be strong enough to do it, because this is the exact man that I believe we need for the job. A man who is not worried about what anybody thinks about him. He's worried about what's best for the country. Sound familiar? It's just like President Trump. It's no wonder President Trump picked him. I'm going to talk about Kash Patel here in a second, but I'm going to piss off Abe Fan 1969 and tell you about my friends over at patriotmobile.com. Patriotmobile.com/Grant is where I want you to go and sign up for mobile phone service through Patriot Mobile. They are doing what I want every company to do, and that is shunning diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is literally out to provide a fabulous service for their customers, and they're not concerned about playing woke games just to appease a mainstream media. This is a company that actually is pushing conservative ideology. And I love it. And I'm choosing them because of it. In God We Trust signs in schools across America. Getting involved in local school board races. This is a national company with fabulous service. You pick the network you want to be on, so you're not going to lose any kind of coverage. This is same coverage you get with any other companies, except you get 100% U.S.-based customer service. And you get the peace of mind knowing that every time you make a phone call, a portion of the proceeds are going to conservative causes to keep America going in the right direction. Why wouldn't you be with Patriot Mobile? Switching is so easy. Even my very special lady friend says, I don't want to switch. It's not. I said, switching, you just call them up. They give you a SIM card number over the phone, and boom, you're up and running. That easy. With these digital SIM cards, it's so easy. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service, which is a great savings. Promo code GRANT. Again, call them 972-PATRIOT. 972-PATRIOT. Tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. Thank you, Patriot Mobile. All right, so Kash Patel. I love this pick. I really do. In fact, I was texting with him yesterday after it, telling him congratulations. I can't wait. He's excited about the possibilities. Certainly, there's some concern about confirmation. I don't know if there's concern on Kash's part. There's concern on my part because you have people, senators, that are not legitimate conservatives that want to protect the deep state. Susan Collins is one of them. You've got these people that could try to hold this up. I'm going to tell you, Kash Patel not only has the credentials, but he has the stones to stand up for the deep state that is dug inside an agency like the FBI. And he's going to have to surround himself with very good people he can trust inside the FBI when he goes there. He's got to make some surprising picks. I told him that, one of the assistant directors of the FBI runs the Office of Public Affairs. I said, you got to change the name of the Office of Public Affairs to the Office of Public Affairs and Accountability and Transparency. The Office of Public Affairs and Transparency. That should be the name of the office. And get back to the business of being transparent about what the FBI did. First and foremost, we go back to January 6th. We want to talk about pardons and Joe Biden pardoning Hunter. President Trump, when he gets in there day one, he's got to go through these January 6ers and pardon those, commute sentences of those, stop the persecution of those that deserve it from January 6th, which is almost all of them. I will acknowledge there were a very, very few select people that probably needed some form of punishment, but not 4 years. Not the amount of punishment that has been received now. There is not one person deserves what they have gotten from this January 6th event, and President Trump has to take that into account and go through it. So I think this needs to happen, and it needs to happen sooner than later. I think it'll happen when President Trump goes in. This is Kash Patel talking about what he wants to do when he gets in. That's exactly what they are looking for. They want to parlay it into more money, more money, more money, more money, more money. That's what the deep state's about. They're also about power. Many of them crave it, which is why they've spent an entire career there. They crave the power, and they like going after conservatives. I think Kash Patel, as an FBI director, if you're a conservative and you break the law, he's going to go after you. But he's not going to just choose conservatives. He's going to make it fair that you break the law, you get prosecuted. Not this let's just go after conservatives for willy-nilly nonsense, domestic terror. What a joke. Do you know inside the Department of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, there's a assistant director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That office needs to instantly be eliminated, and I'm sure Kash Patel would do that. Now, Andrew McCabe, the deep stater who was inside the FBI, talked on CNN. This is how you know Kash Patel's the guy for the job.
Andrew, I just want to start first with you and just get your reaction to this news tonight.
Yeah, well, it's a terrible development for the men and women of the FBI and also for the nation that depends on a highly functioning, professional, independent Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fact that Kash Patel is profoundly unqualified for this job is not even like a matter for debate. So I think what we should really be thinking about right now is what does this signal in terms of Donald Trump's intent for the FBI? The installation, or the nomination, I guess we should say at this point, of Kash Patel as FBI director can only possibly be a plan to disrupt, to dismantle, to distract the FBI, and to possibly use it as a tool for the president's political agenda.
Again, Democrat hypocrisy. What has Joe Biden been doing with the FBI, using it as a political weapon, going after J6ers. They've made a huge deal of this domestic terror organizations. Come on. We have real jihadists in this country that want to blow up themselves and take American citizens with them. They want nothing more than to march American citizens out to the beaches of Long Island or Florida or California or Texas and put them on their knees and lop their heads off. And yet they're focused on the Proud Boys. Come on. They're focused on grandmas who marched through the Capitol on January 6th, basically taking an unorganized tour, led, in fact, by January 6th Capitol police officers who were not telling them to leave, and then they're prosecuted with felony convictions. This is a freaking joke. This McCabe character is a loser. President Trump most certainly wants to upend the FBI and get it back to its core mission of prosecuting those who commit crimes against America and American citizens, not prosecuting conservatives.
And, you know, as an organization, we know what that looks like. This country has been there before, right? The pre-Watergate FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover FBI, struck fear in the hearts of Americans across the spectrum of politicians, people in entertainment, people in the civil rights community, because the director operated at the direction of presidents to collect political intelligence and to utilize the legal authorities, the investigative authorities of the FBI to terrorize and intimidate Americans.
J. Edgar Hoover operated for a very long time because he had dirt on every president that came into office. That dirt is now uncovered by the mainstream media, and in many respects, the public has a larger tolerance than they did for dirt because they know now the smear campaigns are just that. They're smear campaigns to hurt good people. A J. Edgar Hoover isn't going to happen ever again. But what will happen is having deep staters inside the FBI that hide under a cloak of bureaucracy that is very hard to fire. Here's what you do. You get in there and you start transferring many of these people out of Washington, and you transfer them to shake down and chase down criminals, drug dealers, MS-13 gang members, Tren de Agua. Go after the cartels. Make cases against those people taking advantage of old ladies, the internet scammers. Get back to the business of protecting American citizens and stop with this domestic terror nonsense. But you've got to move those agents out of Washington, D.C. Kash Patel has said that he would be willing to do that. Here's another thing I'm going to tell you. When I was in mainstream media, I worked for the NBC owned and operated stations group for almost 20 years. You'd call the FBI for comment, and what would happen with the FBI, they'd always say no comment. We don't comment on an existing investigation. Even at that level, I understand that you can't comment on an ongoing investigation because there's certain limitations for what the courts will tolerate. But you most certainly can talk about the need for investigations, what surrounds that crime, the need to go after people who operate in those certain worlds. You've got to be out there instilling confidence in the American people that, you know what? The FBI's on the case, not no comment. We're not talking. We operate at our own time frame. We're not going to talk to the American public. Screw that. And you certainly don't put undercover agents into a conservative gathering to set them up for criminal prosecution. And I do believe that's what happened January 6th. When Kash Patel gets in there, now he's going to have the keys to the castle. Now he's going to say, who were these confidential informants? Who were the undercover FBI agents that engaged in this activity? What did leadership inside the FBI know about the lengths that they went to persecute and prosecute and set up good, freedom-loving Americans on that day? This is not the kind of law enforcement agency I want that goes after American citizens just because of the way they think. We're going to end that when Kash Patel gets into the FBI. Those days are over because he won't tolerate it. Now, you watch, just as when Matt Gaetz was nominated to be Attorney General, sadly, he's not going to make it there. They scared him out with the threat of releasing all of these information, I'm sure was lies. DOJ lawyers lawyered up themselves. You watch, there's going to be a mass exodus. I bet it starts happening today inside the FBI. Mass exodus. You know, if I asked you who is the leader of public affairs inside the FBI, I'd say huge role, by the way. You've got the nation's number one law enforcement agency should be going after very bad criminals. Instead, they focus on the not so bad ones like J6ers. You would think you would know exactly who that person is. She's a nobody. I had no idea who this woman is. Never seen a news conference by her, nothing. She's in charge of public affairs, and you don't even know who she is? It's a travesty because they operate behind a wall of secrecy. That has to end inside the FBI. It's got to be about transparency now, and this is going to have a mass exodus of FBI agents, and there's going to be a lot of criminal defense attorneys in Washington, D.C., who are going to have new clients with Agent so-and-so in front of their name. Mark my words on that. I promise you that will happen. We're going to get into a lot of this on the Real America's Voice show tonight. I promise you. And we'll talk about all of this and break it down and more. We're going to have some good guests. But you know what I'm going to focus on tonight, which nobody's focusing on? That's the Biden crime family. Let's go back and focus on the real crimes that Joe Biden has committed, that Hunter committed in the name of profiting off his position of power. Let's go focus on that. Nobody's doing it. That's the most important story. Not the pardon, not Hunter Biden, not any of that. The most important story is Biden family corruption. And how do we get some accountability with that? All right, folks. Listen, lastly, you know I love these guys. My friends over at the Wellness Company. I've got one of these. These are the emergency medical kits. 8 of the most important anti-parasitics, including ivermectin in here, antivirals, antibiotics in here, a handy-dandy guidebook, all directed straight to you in your drawer. This has to be part of your emergency preparedness plan. If it's not, you are not prepared. That's the bottom line on this. We could have drugstores closed down a heartbeat. We've seen it with cyber attacks. Lord knows what else could happen. Natural disasters and terrorist attacks. Who knows? But you better have prescription medications on hand. Otherwise, you and your family are not prepared. TWC.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT. Get it today. I mean it. Give it as a birthday gift or something. But use that promo code GRANT for big savings on all their products. Peruse the website, TWC.health/Grant. Do it today. Again, folks, my website is GrantStinchfield.com. Go sign up for the email list. I so appreciate all of you watching today. It is a pleasure to have you along. If you're new to watching on the Rumble channel, thank you so much. YouTube, we try to get on there. Not every episode can get on there because they literally censor me and threaten to throw me off. Same thing goes for Facebook. But I appreciate you anywhere you're watching because it's important we spread this message. So like the video, share it, copy the link, share it on your Twitter feed or wherever else you share social media posts, Truth Social, Getter. Thank you to them. It's great having you along. Again, Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you tune in. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you soon, folks.